Hello, everyone. We are about to get started here in a few minutes. If you've been with us before, we are using a new software for doing our webinar. So please bear with us while we are working out all the things with that. So today, our webinar, we're going to be going over New Year prep and cleanup. So kind of like what you as a officer need to do to get ready for a successful spring semester. You may be a new officer, you may be returning depending on when your chapter does elections, but this is kind of just good upkeep for your organization. And then since most elections do occur in the fall and spring is normally new officers coming in, we're going to go through a few things that some new officers might not know just to get you started in Vault. And then we do have a Q&A section, which Hannah has posted a question in. You can respond to it, or if you want to give it a thumbs up just to make sure that looks good to go and is working, you can go into the Q&A section and do that there. She asked what's one goal you have for yourself or your chapter this upcoming year. We'd love to hear any response from you guys about what that might be. And if you have any questions within like during the webinar, you can always submit those. They'll go into review and we'll respond to them. And once we respond, it'll be in published. If you want to go ahead and submit a question, just with your name and what chapter you're with, so we can see those coming through, that would be great. And then we'll just dismiss those rather than publishing them so it doesn't crowd up the feed. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started today. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, we're going to be going over New Year prep and cleanup for a spring semester. And my name is Sarah Beth Russell. I'm going to be your main presenter today. And then with me, I have Hannah Gunderson, who will be in the question section answering those while we go through the webinar. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and submit those and she will be watching that, and we'll do Q&A at the end as well to go over any of those. So for our agenda for today, we're going to go over access levels and roster updates, and then we'll look at spring billing and bill pay, and then we'll have our Q&A at the end. And after that, we'll just look at the Vault Help Center as well as contact information for you guys, what you'll need to reach out if you have any questions. And I do have this as well. If anybody wants to take a screenshot of that, we'll also send it with the recording. But these are some of the things that we're going to go over today. This is like a general checklist that we have for you guys that can kind of just get you started for the spring semester. So some things you might want to check, go over, update if they haven't been by previous officers, and that'll kind of get you set up for success. I'm going to go ahead and go over here into Vault. So we are under our officer Steve here. Steve is currently listed as the treasurer, but if we look here, if we try and go do anything under billing, it's going to have this pop up here. Looks like he does not have the proper admin access. So if we click on request admin rights, it'll show you everybody who has admin rights who can grant those. So we're going to reach out. Our previous treasurer was Grant Green. So you reach out to him, however it's going to look. So give me a moment while I change to Grant's account and we can update Steve's access. Okay, we are under Grants here. And typically when you're going to update your Vault access for any users, we'll go under the admin tool here. You're going to go under Vault users. Now, we'll look at how you can update your officer titles. So like I said, Steve already is listed as the treasurer, but he doesn't have all his access. That's because when you are updated to an officer position, it'll give you, it'll like automatically give you vault access, but it doesn't give you manage to everything you need. So whoever your previous person is, or if you have the correct access, you can go in and clean it up, go under the gear icon and go to your vault users. We're going to look through these here and kind of clean that up. But first we'll start with giving Steve his appropriate access. So he has some of his manage access, but because he is the treasurer, we're going to give him manage access to all of those. And that'll get him good to go there. And then it does look like we have Terry here who does not have a listed title. So we're going to go ahead and delete his vault access and Noah's as well. And then Grant no longer has an officer title as well, but he's maybe still helping Steve out with some stuff. So we'll leave his vault access for now the way it is. And that'll be good to go. And so if you need to edit anybody's vault access, you have the pencil icon here, and then deleting, you're just going to have that trash can icon. And then if you do have to add anybody, you'll go to add user, use the drop down to pick which person you're going to need to add, and then update their access for each of the tabs. These correspond with each of the tabs across the top, and that'll give them whatever access you want them to have for that tab. There's no access, view, access, and manage. So if they have view, they can look at it, but they can't edit anything or do anything with that. And then manage, they'll have full access to that tab. Now, going back to Steve, let's see if we can, why not let me refresh. And now looking at Steve's, we can access the billing tab. So he's good to go with that. Before we go into the billing tab though, under your chapter tab, if you go to your officers, that's where you can see who's listed as what officer position and what their office date is. If you need to edit any officers, you can click that edit officers, choose who the new person is going to be, and then put in their from and to date accordingly. You can do this before their time is up. So let's say you know who your new treasurer is going to be by the 1st of December. You can still put in that they'll just start on January 1st of the next year till the end part of the next year or whatever their dates are, and it'll go ahead and update that automatically on the day that they take over that you put for the start date. And one other thing you want to check under the billing tab for your officer updates kind of is going to go with that, your statement contact information. So you want to make sure this is updated. It's not, so we'll go ahead and update Steve as the treasurer. And then I'm not sure, but if I had to guess, and we'll just leave the phone number the same since that's just random. And then if you do have anything you want to put in the statement message, you can update that here. So you want to update this because this is what your members are going to see when they receive their statements, their bills. And so if they reach out to contact somebody, you want to make sure they're reaching out to the right person for any questions they may have. Go ahead and update that accordingly. And one last thing for access updating, but it's going to be regarding bill pay. So even though we've given Steve full manage access, he is not going to have bill pay access. If we go to the registers here, he can't see any of these registers or click on them if he tries to. So we're going to update his bill pay access accordingly. Sorry, I should have done this when I was in Grant earlier. But under the bill pay tab, you'll go to your user access here, and you'll need to update your new person. So actually, maybe Steve does have, no, he doesn't. So if you click on the bill pay user, or if you don't see them in this drop down, he was added because he does have the manage tab access, but we're just giving him access to actually use bill pay essentially. If you don't see the member there, you can use the plus button to add them. But he is here, and we'll go ahead and do the edit icon here. We're going to grant him all permissions since he'll need access to all of that. And then depending on how many funds you may have, which we'll look at what your register looks like in funds later in the webinar, but depending on how many funds you have, depends on how many times you may need to grant this. So we'll go grant all permissions for this until what I normally do is until there's no more. So there's no more funds. They just have the 2 for this chapter, and we've granted him all permission. They don't have the ability to print checks locally, and then it'll always have no for self-refund and self-reimburse. That way, no member can directly refund or reimburse themselves. So now he has his full access here. Okay, now that we've updated all of their accesses, the statement contact, and their officer titles, we're going to go ahead and move on to updating your roster. So looking at your roster under the chapter icon here, we're going to update the member roster first. So you do have your member and your billing roster. Your member roster is typically how your national organization recognizes members. So if they are active, essentially, and then your billing roster is going to be if you're actively still billing that member. So let's say maybe you have a brother who is not currently active, but they do still live in the house and you are charging them for rent and that sort of thing. You may still be billing them even though they are considered alum or whatever it may be with national organization. So there are a few circumstances where they may differ in like the rosters may differ in which one is active or not. Again, your member roster is typically how your nationals is going to recognize who to bill you for. So when you get your national invoice, if your organization uses Vault with you guys, normally you'll have something other than like My Omegafy. It'll look like specifically branded, and that means they are looking at your Vault roster specifically. If you don't have that, if you update your roster somewhere else, they may not be pulling from that, but it's still always good practice to update your member roster here as well. So this is what your member roster looks like. And then we have the separate one here to actually update your member statuses. So it'll show you by status. We don't have anybody who's currently a new member status, but we do have our initiate. So all of these listed initiates, let's say some of them have graduated, we can go ahead and click on them accordingly and move them to alumnus. And then you can put in their date of graduation as well if that's what they're moving to. There's several different options here. If they've disassociated or they were suspended, you can choose that as well. We'll go ahead and update those member statuses over. And now we can see they are added to the people who are listed under alumnus. And the same would go for new members as well. If you're updating them to initiate. Another thing to note on that, though, is if your nationals does use this to look at your roster, you may not be able to update your new members to initiate. That'll be because you need to submit your initiation reporting and it needs to be approved by your nationals. So make sure you've done that. If you're seeing new members who should be initiates, they may not be able to be approved by nationals if you haven't submitted your reporting for that accordingly. And then under your billing tab here, you have your member list by billing group, which will show all your members by what billing group they're in. And if we want to update, there's two things we can update here. You can update the actual billing group they're in, which when we look at billing setup, it's kind of how you divide up billing them. And then you can update their billing status. This one is going to be important for how Omegafy charges their fee to you. So when we look at that, however many active members you have on your roster, when cycle one goes out is going to be the number we bill you guys for. So you don't want to have people who are on your roster when cycle one goes out that aren't active. If that's not the case, you want to go ahead and update them before your statements send out so that you're not being charged for members who actually aren't getting charges, and you'll probably have to reverse their charges if they did go out with cycle one. So if you mark them inactive before cycle one goes out, though, they won't get any new charges. So we'll go down to the two we marked inactive, and they are currently active billing status. We're going to change that to inactive, and then you can choose the billing status reason. I'm going to say graduated. And then you can update their billing status accordingly. And I'll give you that little message just in case you have any questions about that. And then one other thing to note here, the people with the little triangle icons here with the exclamation point, those are people who have vault access. You will not be able to update these members to inactive billing until their vault access is removed. So if you have somebody who was an officer in their last semester, and then they now graduated, but they still have vault access, and you're trying to mark them inactive billing status, you're not going to be able to. You'll need to go where we went earlier to remove their vault access, and then you'll be able to mark them as inactive billing status. And then you can also, like I said before, update your billing groups. This is how you part of how you bill your members. So if you have specific billing groups set up based on various different options. So here we have those who are active, and then we have active with a payment plan. So that'll be broken down among your cycles. Same with the new members. So your new members may be charged differently than your actives. You can put your members in those specific groups. If you maybe have a group that gets charged for rent, you can put that in there accordingly and divide up your members that way. So right now we're looking like we can change it to be if we wanted. I know there's currently no new members listed in the member roster, but it looks like we do still have all of these still in a new member group. So if we wanted to update them to active billing, or if any of them maybe are going to be active payment plan, we would just do 2 different times. So let's say maybe these 2 are in the payment plan, we can update billing group there. Then we just have these 2 left, and we can update them to the active payment plan. I'll leave them here for now. And then once you have made all your updates to your roster, you can set up your billing. You can set up your billing before. Typically, like if you wanted to set it up fall for spring, that's going to be best to just get you kind of already ready for the spring semester. But if you didn't already set it up, we're going to do that now. And then even if you did set it up during fall, you don't have to make your roster changes until after your fall semester cycles are done. And then that'll still keep your members from being incorrectly billed once spring comes. So here we can see we already have spring billing set up, but if we didn't, we would just hit the setup billing here. And it'll take you through these 3 different screens here. So you'll select your dates first. We'll say summer for 2025, and then you'll select your first due date. So I don't remember when the other cycles ended, but let's say we do the first due date as June 15th, and then it'll pre-fill all your others. If we wanted to make the late after date longer, so your late after date is when a late fee will actually assess to your members' account. So if you guys have late fees set up, you can make this longer if you want to give them more time before a late fee assesses. We'll do it to 5 days, and then it moves that out. If you don't want them all to be on the same date at any point, you can always reach out to operations support, and they will help you with changing the dates to better fit your chapter's needs. But when you initially set it up, it will pre-fill based on the first due date that you select. And just hit next on that. Also, same with your late fee. If you want to change it to a fixed late fee, if you have percentage, or to a percentage if you have fixed, however you want to do that, or just get rid of the late fee. In general, well, you can get rid of the late, like not charge it by clicking here. But if you want to change anything about the late fee, you can reach out to operations support as well. I'll go ahead and hit next here. And it'll ask you to copy from a previous term. Typically during summer, we don't have any charges. They're just set up for reminder statements. Looks like maybe this did have before senior dues. So if we hit next after that, it'll have you review everything, and then you can save and complete to set that up. I'm going to leave this though, and we'll just go look at spring for how you can edit your charges. So here, if you did have anything that needed to change after you've already set up billing. So if you want to go ahead and set up billing early, you can do that. And even if you have changes coming, you can always make those edits afterwards, just as long as it's before the cycle goes out. So for active, if we needed to change any of the charges, these are showing the fall and then summer, like our last few billing cycles that went out. But for spring, we have this set up, let's say national dues, or there's no chapter dues added. So let's say we needed to add chapter dues. We're going to just label that as chapter dues. It's going to be a charge. And then we'll do the income account for chapter dues and fees. There's multiple under here, so you can always just choose the one that's best fits for that for you, and however you want to pull that for like budgeting later, it's how it'll record it. So whatever you want to put your income account so that you can differentiate what those charges are for. And let's say those are going to be 100, just to make it a clean number. And then we can save that and it will update accordingly. And then just make sure that if you are updating that though, if you have any other groups, so for instance, there's nothing here in spring for active payment plan. Those weren't set up. You can again copy from another term, or we're going to want to copy from another billing group here. So we're going to copy from the actives, and then you can just edit it accordingly. So let's say we keep the accounting fee in the first one, but we want to divvy this up through the 4 cycles. And then maybe this one for the first 2 cycles. And then that way it's not so much upfront. And we'll leave that there as well. And then you can save that, and you've updated that for both of them. So that is kind of like a little how you can set up your billing. Another thing to know is if you ever need to change these billing group names, you can do it initially when you set up billing. So like if you need to change a name for that, you can do that when you're setting it up. But once you have it set up, you won't be able to edit the billing group name. So you can reach out to operations support for that as well. Most of them you'll probably already have like set in stone though, what you normally use. But if you do need a new billing group or anything, you can always add that during billing setup. So these are just for your scheduled charges. If at any point you do need to add anything during the semester, you can go under billing and then either add transactions en masse or to a group. So depending on what that may look like for your chapter, if you add it to a group, let's say you want to add to your new member group and your new member payment plan. You would select all the members in there and you can add a charge to all of their accounts. You only have to put it in the one time. Let's say it's for like new member retreat. And then you could choose the income account. We'll do social for this one. And then, whatever that amount is, hit next step. And it'll show that it's going to post to all of their accounts and you can create those transactions. And then that will be applied to all of their accounts. Now, if you don't need it to apply to everyone, it's a few people, or maybe the amounts are going to be different for everyone, you can add a transaction in mass and you can choose your people accordingly. So let's say, let's say we need all of these people to have charge for t-shirts, but they all order different amounts. You can do, say, the recruitment shirts. If the t-shirt is $15, but let's say this person ordered 2, this person had 3, you'll just add that accordingly. So if you're going to have different amounts or even different charges, let's say this person has a t-shirt, but maybe this person actually, you're putting in a fine for missing chapter or whatever it may be, you can do all of these at once on this one screen and then go to create the transactions. So your transactions in mass are going to be if not everybody's getting the same thing, and then your transactions to a group are going to be if you're adding the same charge for multiple people, essentially. Okay, and now we'll go over and look in bill pay. So under bill pay, just to give kind of a quick overview of that, if you go to your registers here, this is where you can see your funds. So this is a test account, so there's no funds within here. So they're not doing so great. Collecting dues, they don't have any funds, but this is where you would see any that come in. You can add funds if you want to, keep a social fund separate for budgeting purposes. You can do that however you're wanting to organize that, or you can just keep it for these two and pay out everything from your operating fund, except for national dues and fees. You can keep that set up separate if you just want to make sure that your national money is separate from your chapter money. And here's where you can also add an officer purchasing card. So if you have not already, if you're a new officer and you have not already ordered a officer purchasing card, or your last officer did not order one for you, you can go ahead and do that here. Because I'm a super user, I can't add it, but you would go for me, and then it would have you fill that out. And it will then send you a card. So it will be a physical card that you'll get in the mail. You'll want to keep an eye out for that, or you can set it up for someone else and pick who that person is. It'll ask you some information. So like this is going to send them an email, and they'll put in their details, and then the card will be sent to them accordingly. Your first card for your chapter is always going to be free, but any additional are $120 for the school year. So $10 a month. And that's how you can add your card. You can also use your bill pay for paying out any vendors. So if you need to access the money in your operating fund and you want to pay out your t-shirt vendor for your bid day shirts or whatever it may be, you can add them under vendors here. You just add the vendor and you'll fill out the information. Once you fill it out, you'll save it, and then you can enter a payment. So you would go to the payments page here, add bill, and then you can select the vendor you're wanting to pay out, put all that information in. And once that bill is in, then it'll show here like this, and you can put to pay it. If you have multiple people need to approve something, sometimes you'll see where something's not processed through, and you may need another officer to approve that payment to go out. So you can do that here. And then this is where you would also do any transfer. So let's say you're needing to pay your national dues and fees invoice because it's due earlier than you need some of the chapter money. And so you need to go ahead and just transfer some of the chapter dues into national dues to pay that forward. You can do a one-time transfer under the add button here, put the amount you need to transfer and say, we need to transfer money into the national dues. You can put a note on there as well and submit that, and it'll transfer the funds accordingly. Within your bill pay funds, it's going to be same day transfer. You can also, if you have an external bank account listed, do a transfer via that as well, but that's going to be ACH. So that may be 2 to 3 business days before you see that posted. So that is just a little quick overview of some of the things you can do in bill pay. And that is, and we looked at the officer purchasing cards. Once you have your officer purchasing card, it'll be under your registers as well. So you can see like how much is on it, that sort of thing. Like, so it'll say who has the card and how much is on there, and you can go in and fund that accordingly. So you would just do like we did with the transfer, but you would add it to the card instead of a fund. And that's kind of what that will look like. And then the last thing I want to show you guys before we look at Q&A is the Get Help section here. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to our Help Center. This is where you can find articles, various information about anything you might need to know, any questions you may have within Vault. And so you can search something to find it, or you can click through these here. We have new officers. If you guys want to click on this, it'll go through some checklists that are here. And we can add the prep checklist as well under this. But we have, you can go through these to kind of get yourself started. Or if you have a question about something more specific, you can look that up. Maybe it's a billing question, and we have all these different articles. So if you don't find the one you need, again, you can search and see if something more specific comes up. And with that, Hannah, are there any questions currently?
We do not have any outstanding questions. We did have one at the beginning where they asked if there was a way for their members to see the upcoming payments and dues before like it actually gets mailed to them. So I did give her the steps. If you guys want to go check that out in the Q&A, your members can see that on their My Omegafy account or equivalent. So if you have a branded version, whatever y'all use to log in and pay your dues, the steps are there. So as long as you as the officer have filled out the billing cycles in Vault, that will be available for your members to get an idea of what they are responsible for paying in the upcoming months.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, if there are no other questions here, I know I said we would give you some information about how you can reach out. So I showed you guys the Help Center. So if you ever want to click on that, that's kind of first line of defense if you want to look for anything that's probably going to be in there. But if you're not able to find what you're looking for, or you need help updating something that you can't do within the system, reach out to operations support at omegafy.com. Do note here, operations with an S and then support. So there's 2 S's, and they will be able to get you help with whatever you need. And I think that is going to wrap up everything for us today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful spring semester.
Oops, Sarah Beth, we do have one more question, so I'll answer that before we end it for everyone. But y'all are more than welcome to keep going while we answer this one. Or leaving, not going as in speaking, sorry. Okay.
So they're asking about if your chapter uses an application, how would you transfer money from Omegafy to that application? If it works like a bank, if there's like a accounting and routing number, then we should be able to connect that for transfers.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar, or do you know this app, Hannah?
I'm not familiar with this Crowded exactly, but I do know, I'm assuming that's a way for you guys to fundraise money, and I do know other chapters use different ways for fundraising. And our bill pay team will work with these companies to get the money moved into your bill pay funds. I would email the operations support at omegafy.com because your client operations specialist that works with your chapter will be able to get more information, and then they'll be able to give you the steps to get that transferred to your account.
Okay, sounds good. I think that is all we have for you guys. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.